What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here, and welcome to our daily show where we discuss the fourth stimulus check update, the two new upcoming packages, part one of the physical infrastructure package, and part two, the next stimulus package, which is $3.5 trillion. They're currently voting on part one, the physical infrastructure package, and will then be voting on the next stimulus package. So, let's jump right in. And I would like to thank today's video sponsor, Blinkist. Blinkist is a cool new app that takes top nonfiction titles and puts them into 15-minute text and audio explainers called Blinks. Use Blinks to learn about topics like philosophy, history, and science, or dive into psychology, health and nutrition, or personal growth. You've got thousands of titles and 27 categories of the world's best knowledge to choose from. Blinkist is awesome for a busy person like myself because I can get the knowledge or information I need quickly and easily. The two books I recommend on Blinkist are Napoleon Hill's Golden Rules and The Richest Man in Babylon. The first 100 people to click the link down below in the description of this video are going to get unlimited free access for 1 week to try out Blinkist. You'll also get 25% off if you want the full membership. The 7-day trial is completely free for members of my community, and you can cancel at any time during that period. If you're on a mobile phone, you might need to click the down arrow next to the title to open up the description to find the link to try Blinkist for free. Okay, we got a lot to cover as literally by the hour things are changing with our government, with the rising COVID cases, the vaccines, them voting in the Senate and the House. So where do we start? Let's jump right in. Okay, number one, the debt ceiling drama. So every couple years, they have to raise the debt ceiling. This is the ability for the U.S. government to lend money, to borrow money, to issue money. This is something that the U.S. government has to do. The United States, suspended its debt ceiling last in 2019, which means that they raised the debt ceiling last during former President Donald Trump's debt ceiling in 2019, and I think again in 2017. They have to do that every, I think, 2 years or so. They have to do this so that the U.S. government can basically lend money, borrow money, and it's something they have to do every 2 years. It's very similar to a bank. If they can't lend money, they can't borrow money, they can't use their money. It's very similar to a bank. They would be in trouble. Well, the deadline for this is today, and as far as I understand, they will not be voting on this today. So their ability to borrow money and to lend money ends today. And the Republicans have said that they do not want to vote to extend it this time around. So as of today, the United States will not be raising their debt ceiling. I'll explain to you what this means here in a second. The Treasury Department runs into an important deadline this weekend, now today, when a 2019 suspension of the government debt limit, known as the debt ceiling, expires on Saturday, today. This forces the Treasury Department to perform what is called an extraordinary measures, so the government can continue paying its obligations as lawmakers prepare to force off over the issue moving forward. The debt ceiling is the amount the Treasury can borrow on behalf of the public. Raising or suspending that borrowing limit does not dictate how much money the government spends, but allows the U.S. to pay what has already been approved. The debt ceiling was suspended in 2019 under former President Donald Trump. Again, they have to do this every couple years. It's just the way the government runs. They have to do this for the government to continue proceeding, or else the government will default in a few months. They have some emergency funds that they can use, about $450 billion. So the government is not going to default immediately. They have some emergency funds that they can use. On Friday, the Treasury Department started taking its, quote, extraordinary measures ahead of the looming deadline and warned congressional leaders in a recent letter that the Treasury will need to start taking additional steps starting on Monday to keep the U.S. from defaulting on its obligations if congressional action was not taken. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said failure to meet its obligations would cause irreparable harm to the U.S. economy. The U.S. has never defaulted on its debt, a situation unwelcome to lawmakers on both sides of the political aisle. But heading into the weekend, no actions appear to be on the horizon to address this issue, but a hard deadline to take action isn't clear. In addition to extraordinary measures, the Treasury Department said earlier this year it would have about $450 billion on hand starting next month. The Congressional Budget Office said it will probably run out of cash starting in October or November. So they basically have a few months of money to pay their bills. The national debt was just under $20 trillion when former President Donald Trump took office. It was $19.9 trillion, and more than $27 trillion when former President Donald Trump left office this year, which means that even under a Republican president, because it's actually the Republicans right now that are worried about raising the debt ceiling. Remember, it's the Republicans that don't want to raise the debt ceiling right now, even though they have to do this for the government to not default. Former President Donald Trump and the Republican president actually raised the national debt by about 40%. If you do the math there, they went from $19.9 trillion to over $27 trillion, which is about a 40% raise in the national deficit in just 4 years. Okay. There it is in black and white. I'm not picking side, but that's just the math of the thing. So here's the thing: is that we're in very unprecedented times. The national debt ceiling expires today. As far as I know, there's no vote scheduled to re-up this or raise this debt ceiling today. So they're going to go into what they're calling extraordinary measures today to basically start using reserve funds from the Treasury to pay the U.S.'s debts and debt obligations. So I'm not sure if this is going to start affecting the U.S.'s national credit rating. We'll have to see here in the next few days. I would have assumed that they were going to try to vote on this before the end of the month. But it seems that this Part 1 physical infrastructure package, I guess, was more important. Remember, they have already voted twice on the physical infrastructure package. They have voted yes on both of those with Republican support. I'll get to that here in a moment. And then they will be voting on the next stimulus package, which is Part 2, the $3.5 trillion stimulus package. Get to that here in a moment as well. This is a very, very major deal because honestly, if the Republicans don't come along, where they will need 60 votes on this, the U.S. will default, literally default. And if this goes long enough and the Treasury runs out of money, we're talking about a cataclysmic default, where we're talking about like the government will run out of money. They won't be able to pay the military. They won't be able to pay Social Security. Like, we're talking about like everything runs out of money. Everything runs out of money. Like, they won't be able to issue new money. Okay. Yeah. Now, I don't think that will happen, because what will probably happen is the Democrats will then just basically raise the debt ceiling in the next stimulus package, which they can do through the reconciliation process, because obviously raising the debt ceiling, remember the main rule for the reconciliation process is it needs to affect the national budget. So obviously raising the debt limit would affect the national budget. So if the Republicans don't raise the national debt limit, they could just squeeze that into the next stimulus package, the $3.5 trillion stimulus package. I would assume And this is where the Senate parliamentarian is going to get involved if the Republicans don't come on board. I'm really surprised that they didn't do an emergency vote on this. You'd have to ask Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and the House on this, but nonetheless, they didn't vote on this. So yeah, very surprised on this. So the Treasury is going to go into emergency reserves to pay the government's debts out of emergency money, and they're going to still have to vote on this at some point in the near future. So we'll stay tuned on this, and we'll see if it affects the government's credit rating. Yeah, like your credit rating, this is the government's credit rating. But, and honestly, the government could default at some point. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. The Democrats will pass it on their own, need be, but why does it always seem like the government is always one step away from doomsday? Like at some point or another, like we're always like one step away from doomsday. Like the government's about to shut down. We have this yearly government shutdown where like every year they have to pass a bill to prevent a government shutdown. Now we have this national debt limit. I mean, this is not now, but like every 2 years they have to raise the national debt limit. And like now the Republicans aren't on board, but the Republicans raised it twice when they had a Republican president. They were okay with raising it then. They have to raise it every 2 years, whether it's a Republican president or not. It's just part of how the government runs. You have to be able to have money for the government. My head's spinning again, and it's not the vertigo. Yeah, I have vertigo, but it's not the vertigo this time. I'm pretty sure. Okay, on to the next stimulus package and the next infrastructure package. Yesterday, they passed the second vote of the infrastructure package. This is part one. Remember, part one is passing in the Senate first. They've now passed the second procedural motion in the Senate, which is very good. They've passed 2 procedural motions. They're now in the amendment stage. This is where they're going to be doing amendments between the Republicans and Democrats. This is a key part of the stage where things could fall apart between the Republicans and Democrats, because this is where they will kind of be vocalizing some, between the two parties, and this is where we could see some heated debates. Now, some people are saying, and remember, former President Trump is basically shouting from the rooftops, don't do the deal. Don't do the deal. Former President Trump is basically yelling at every Republican they can to not pass this deal. And what's interesting is in the second vote, one more Republican voted no. So they had 67 votes in the first vote in the Senate. In the second vote, they only had 66 votes. And when they get to the final vote here, they're going to need 60 votes. And they're losing votes along the way. If they don't get 60 votes in this final vote, well, then it all could fall apart. Remember, part one has to pass. Then they move on to part two, which is the next stimulus package. And check this out, because this will explain things a little bit more. I seen this interview, and I thought this was interesting on Senate Mitch McConnell's role in this negotiations. Check this out.
We are keeping a close eye on Capitol Hill, where we are just a few hours away from the next big Senate vote on that $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure plan. And even though there are several steps to go, there's a growing sense that it could actually get passed in the Senate, with a bunch of Republicans, even Mitch McConnell himself, potentially signing on. I don't know if I believe that. NBC national political reporter Sahil Kapoor has been all over this. Sahil, according to what you have learned, is McConnell really going to give Biden a win? Like, let's be clear. The vote that has happened already is just procedural. The text hasn't even been written yet. He's got all sorts of outs.
That's right, Stephanie. It is for real in the sense that Mitch McConnell is not working to kill this deal. That is according to many Republican sources we've talked to. It is also true according to some Democrats who are surprised by the fact that he's voting to move forward with this deal, and he appears to have given his Republican members the green light to support it. Now, why is he doing this? Why is the self-styled Grim Reaper allowing a Democratic president to potentially get a victory? And the reason is this is a major release valve on 2 fronts. There are moderate and retiring Republicans in the Senate caucus who want to actually do some big things and not just obstruct. That includes Rob Portman, who's in legacy building mode. This is a way for them to achieve something. There is also the incentive for McConnell that he wants to preserve the filibuster. This gives moderate Democrats like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema the talking point they want to go back to the left and say, see, the Senate works. We don't actually have to change the rules. Beyond that, Stephanie, infrastructure is a politically safe space. It is popular. Nobody really hates it. Now, former President Donald Trump, still the de facto leader of the party in many ways, has been dumping on this deal in numerous statements this week. But a Republican senator tells me that has had almost zero impact on the Senate caucus and its negotiations and the vote. So there we are. It's a way for McConnell to do something, to get his members, to make his members happy, and potentially to deny the left some victories in the long haul.
So let's say it gets through the Senate. What happens in the House?
It faces a very steep climb in the House for a number of reasons. Firstly, there are many progressives who say they will not support this infrastructure deal in the House unless it is paired with the separate multi-trillion-dollar economic safety net expansion. There's also the fact that a key House Democrat, Peter DeFazio, the chairman of the Transportation Committee, does not like this deal at all. I spoke to Congressman DeFazio yesterday, and he said, based on what he has seen, there's not enough money for transit, there is not enough money for rail. He doesn't like the fact that this is a highway-centric bill that, according to him, does not do much to combat climate change. And House Democratic leadership sources I've talked to insist that they will make sure DeFazio's work is reflected in this, and the House imprint is on this. So the fate of this is very much tied in to the fate of that multi-trillion-dollar bill that by itself will be very difficult to pass, Stephanie.
And remember, that next bill is the $3.5 trillion bill, which the Democrats are calling an anti-poverty plan. An anti-poverty plan. And again, you can let me know what you think is going to be in an anti-poverty plan. In fact, Senator Bernie Sanders is largely being considered the deal maker and the person in charge of the anti-poverty plan, the person in charge of who is going to be what is who puts everything in this next bill. He is the person who was largely credited for the second stimulus check, the person who put the second stimulus check in the second stimulus check package that was actually put in at the very last minute on the second stimulus check package. So the question is, what will be put in this last stimulus check package? And as COVID cases are rising, we actually had 122,608 cases yesterday. You can see on this graph here, that is a lot. 122,608 cases. You can see on this graph right here. Compared to, I mean, just June 20th there, that's about a month ago, we had 4,000 new cases, 4,000. But because of this new Delta variant, we're now at 122,000 cases. Everybody thought, I mean, a lot of the conspiracy theorists thought, oh, when Biden comes into office, the virus is going to go away. You know, and now, I mean, we were down to 4,000 new cases a day. I know a lot of people were like, thank God, we won't have to wear masks anymore. But now this new Delta variant, man, is just really, really spiking up. And even with 50% of the population vaccinated, I mean, look at this new spike up. We had 122,000 new cases yesterday. And you can see these new headlines. The Biden administration seems open to a new lockdown, which could make a fourth stimulus check necessary. Yeah, so in one case, we're seeing new mandatory vaccines in some cases. I actually put a really, really good video I'll link you to here in a moment on the vaccines that are being mandatory in certain cases, in certain circumstances. I'll link you to a video I just did that it kind of explains that. And it kind of makes the case for a fourth stimulus check in this next package and child tax credits to be extended. Remember, those are only passed for this 1 year, this $250 to $300 per month checks that are a total of $3,000 to $3,600 for the year. And the adult tax credits, which could be also the same thing, $250 to $300 per month or $3,000 to $3,600 per year for stimulus checks, monthly recurring stimulus checks, all these things that could be in this fourth stimulus package, this $3.5 trillion package. Remember, that is almost double the size of the third stimulus check package. And that package had $1,400 stimulus checks, $1,400 stimulus checks for children, $1,400 stimulus checks for adult dependents and college students, and the $3,000 to $3,600 child tax credits. All of that was in the third stimulus check package, and that was only $1.9 trillion. This is going to be $3.5 trillion. Now, Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema say that they might negotiate it down a little bit. But even if it's $3 trillion, that's still like 50% more than the third stimulus check package. So there's going to be plenty of money in there for stimulus checks and all sorts of things. Yeah, and now with the government thinking about lockdowns and mask mandates and mandatory vaccines, and man, if you didn't watch my new video on mandatory vaccines, like, it's insane. It's absolutely insane to think that a month ago we were at 4,000 new cases a day for the whole country. Like, it was almost gone. And now we're at 122,000 new cases per day. It's literally going like this. Like, honestly, I feel like in a few days we're going to be at 200,000 new cases a day. It's insane. We were just at 4,000 and now we're at 122,000. It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. And honestly, if I was the president, remember the vaccine was produced underneath former President Donald Trump. And now you got Biden. And I honestly don't know if I was Biden or if I was Trump. I honestly don't know what I would do if I was president, because it's insane. It's honestly insane. I don't even know what let me know what you would do if you were president, how you would stop this thing. It's honestly insane. I honestly think that they're going to probably be working on a new vaccine based on the Delta variant. But you have so many people that don't want to take the vaccine, and I understand it. I mean, I could sit here and argue the case for both sides. As a realist, that's what I do. I try to see the case for Republicans, and I try to see the case for Democrats. I try to see the case for people that don't want to take the vaccine, and the case for people that do want to take the case. To keep people that on both sides, right? Yeah, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, right? It's a crazy world out there, and honestly, I think that this pandemic is going to go on for a long time. I think the economic recovery is going to go on for a long time. You can let me know if you think differently, but luckily that this package is this next stimulus package is getting bigger. People that think stimulus is over, I don't see why they think that. I mean, they've announced a $3.5 trillion stimulus package. It's larger. It's larger. The last one was 1.9 trillion. This one's 3.5 trillion. I don't get the naysayers that think that stimulus is over. I mean, it's a larger stimulus package, guys. It's a larger stimulus package. Now, we don't know what's going to be in there, okay? And I think at the last moment, they're going to put a lot in there. Stimulus checks and everything. I think they're going to be crazy if they don't. And guess what? On October 1st, which is 2 months away, they get a new round of these, 2 or 3 more of these for the next year. Okay, the new fiscal year starts on October 1st. So there's going to be more stimulus packages after this, because guess what? COVID's going crazy. They're talking about new lockdowns, new mask mandates, and who knows what else. Mandatory vaccines. Yeah, all these things that they said would never happen, right? The government would never do. That's what they're talking about now. So I don't know, man. You tell me. I'm just here to report what's going on. So yeah, make sure to subscribe down below. I'll keep you updated to date with everything. I'll link you to that crazy video. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Click this to watch my newest stimulus check video next. And this is that crazy video about how the government is making mandatory vaccinations in certain limited capacities in certain parts of the United States and certain government jobs and stuff like that. So mandatory vaccinations are becoming a thing. So click on this video if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video.